David and I were going to make a trip to Red Beach. Well, we did make a trip to Red Beach, and we were going to look at some of the rock formations there that I was telling him about. But as it turned out, cycles got us. There was a high tide and we couldn't get around the rocks. So this is from a photo that I took a long time ago, and I'm on the right hand part is the left hand part repeated and annotated. Let's look at the left first. We find there's a formation of rocks there. There's flat rocks. The tide has washed away the cliff. You can see all the geological layers up on the cliff, huge cliff, and this very flat area where the tides have washed away.
Yes.
And you go there and you look at this and you think, someone laid some paving stones. It just looks like someone laid paving stones. Big flat area of these things, and I could measure them off. There would be some that were very regular distance, like we see this one, and if we pop up a little bit we see another one of the same size. But in here it's got 3 of them in the space that it had 2 there.
Yeah.
Now these things are like musical rhythms, because we've got a 2 and a 2 and a 2, then we've got a 3 and a 3, which are dotted notes, right?
Yes.
So it's, it's going. I call this rock music.
Yep. Fitting.
Yeah. And at the same time, another part is playing a thing in the same time as that up there, and then this one bops into a double time there. Yes. So when we look at these over a large area of this rocky foreshore, I found that I was measuring them with my shoes, and I was standing on one and I was finding that my shoe was about that big.
Yeah.
This was about 10% longer than my shoe. Mm-hmm. And in places I could find a large number of those at that same spacing. And so I could do like...
all about the same size.
All about the same size. And then in other places there'd be this thing like this with the relative proportions. And then there were other formations there too. There were these big bands of rock coming down the beach. And I was measuring those out as well, using my shoes and doing other things with shoes. And then there were some other ones we found, and it turned out that the span of my hand gave a very good measure of that. And so I noted all these different things down, and then I went home and I measured my shoe, and I wrote this down. This one's about, just over 30 centimetres, and this one's, 22.5 centimetres, and such like.
Yes.
And then I realised I was using the wrong units. Because just over 30 centimetres was a foot, and this thing's called a span.
Yes.
And when you looked at all these things, it's the old imperial units.
Yeah.
And so the imperial units, in the range from human size down to little bits of human size, we have fathom, which is 6 feet.
Yes.
And it was often sometimes referred to this fathom long body, meaning a man who was 6 feet tall. Then we have a yard, which is half that much.
Yeah.
Then we had a cubit, which was half a yard.
Yeah.
Then we had a span, which was half a cubit.
Yeah.
Then we divide these by 3. We divide the yard by 3, and we get a thing we call a foot.
Yes.
And then we can have half a foot, which is 6 inches. That didn't have a name. Then we halve that, and we get 3 inches, and that's called a hand. That's this distance here.
Yeah.
Sorry, a palm. It's called a palm. It's that distance there.
Oh, palm.
Yeah. And then we can go back to the foot again and divide that by 3. We get 4 inches. That's called a hand. It's that part there. They measure horses in hands.
Yes.
We halve that, we get 2 inches. We halve that, we get an inch. It's called an inch.
Yes.
If we start dividing those by 3 again,
Yeah.
we get a third of an inch.
Yes.
And that had a name. It's called a barleycorn.
Okay.
They're a third of an inch. We had a sixth of an inch, which is called a line, and the old printers used to do 6 lines in the inch.
Yes.
We had a 12th of an... Sorry, that's called something else. 1/6 of an inch. A 1/12 of an inch was called a line. Remember the 12th inch on the rulers?
Oh, absolutely.
You still have them.
We do use them in the States.
We still have those. We're on metric now. So we had all these units. Everything I found there was one of those.
Oh.
Except they were a tiny bit smaller than the modern imperial units, about 1% smaller.
Well, that's still close.
Still close. And then when we compared those, I think I've talked to you about Thom's stone circles. He had a unit which he called a megalithic yard, and it was he said it was 2.72 feet. When I analysed them, I found yes, there was a 2.72 feet, and there was also a 5.44 feet, a megalithic fathom, if you like.
Yeah.
And then I found there were some larger ones, and those ones related to a chain. The other larger measurements in the imperial system, a chain and a furlong, and even some fractions of a mile, larger fractions of a mile. And so it's my opinion that nature, we expect wavelengths all the way from the sizes of supergalactic clusters all the way down to subatomic particles. We expect there to be some things, and I think the old imperial system, less 1%, or the modern one, less 1%, is in fact a measure of these waves that are present all around us, that just gently try to cause us to things to happen at those intervals. And I shouldn't have that graph up while I was doing it, so you maybe just want the voice of that with something else.
Well, we can lay over the
we can lay that over Thom's circles.
So the imperial system of using halves and thirds and quarters and everything was probably not just a construct of an abstract imagination.
No.
It may have been reflecting what we observed in nature.
Yes. And so when people made stone blocks that were a foot long, it's a lot easier to just go down and dig the ones up off the beach than in case they're a foot long. And you want a half
and
one?
They may have found more examples.
You can find a half one in that.
And it's the same harmonics that we see a lot in waves theory is showing up physically. And
when we go from the 12th of an inch to the inch, we go a 2 and a 2 and a 3 to get the 6 and a third. And we go from an inch. We go 2 and 2, we get the hand, and when we go 3, we get the palm. And when they go 2 and 2 from that one, or 3 from that one, we get the foot. And then we go 3 from that, we get the yard, and we go 2 from that, we get the fathom.
Common harmonics that we see in frequencies, that we see in distances, and in the three-dimensional world, in objects, in nature.
So a man called, I think it's Alexander Thom, in the British Isles, he went and he made a study of the stone circles, and there's a lot of them. And so, and with them all, he measured the diameters of them all, and other things as well. And he said, in his opinion, there was a unit that they used in constructing them, which he called a megalithic yard. And he said it was 2.72 feet. So these numbers here are in feet, which is what he measured them in. I found that when I used Kotel's method to analyse them, it showed not only 2.72 feet, but even more strongly 5.44 feet, which is exactly double that. A megalithic fathom, if you like. It also showed these other ones, and this one is 4 times that, more or less. This is 3 times that, so we've got a 2. There's probably another 2 there, 2, 4, and some other values. This one here is effectively a chain, a little bit less than a chain. And this is 1/3 of that. And this is these ones are the imperial units coming down to, the imperial units have this funny 5.5 ratio in them, or 11 ratio. You come down from a mile, an eighth, that's a furlong, and you come down to fractions and you get to a chain, and you come down in fractions and you get to a quarter of that is 5.5 yards. What's a rod or pole or a perch? 5.5 feet or 5.5 yards?
I do not know.
It's one of those things. Then you throw this funny 11 ratio in, and then you get all the fathom, the yard, the cubit, and all of those ones that we mentioned before. But there's this one ratio of 11 in there, and so. But when you are above there, if you continue to do the divisions by 2 and so on, you get these values.
Indeed.
So these are related to the rod, pole, perch, and the chain, and all of those ones before the division by 11. So 12 of those and 11 modern yards. 12 that one and 11 modern yards is the same thing. But again, 1% less. Always 1% less than the imperial units. Somewhere they had inflation of 1%.
Okay. Maybe a copy of a copy got
standardized. Similar stuff. When I've looked at some of the Greek building stuff, which they love their proportions and their things like that, you'll find 2 and 3 ratios in that, and the size of those also show evidence of these units of chains and so on like that.
Good heavens.
So people have assumed, I don't know that even proves that it was communication between them. I think they are waves in nature that people who are building a temple are probably sensitive to some of these things.
Could be independent discovery.
Yeah.
Interesting.